Good morning, good afternoon, good evening around the world. My name is Doug Brunke, founder and CEO of Global Chamber. It's been a very eventful week here in North America. The Consumer Electronics Show is here, and one of the real strong impressions that I had walking, oh my God, so many miles across so many new technologies is that technology is global. And I was overwhelmed by the number of international companies and countries involved with CES. And there was even one day my head was exploding, and I thought, I don't think I can take one more. And then as I was leaving to take the bus, I recognized there was an entire new floor that I had completely missed. And I went on there, and there was this huge a French and then a huge Italian area and a huge Japanese area. It was like it's endless. And so, one of the really critical things I think for all of us to digest everything that's going on is to have a global mindset, but don't let that overwhelm things. We know what we know. We know our own culture. We know probably at least one other culture, and many of the folks and all of our speakers know many cultures and how to navigate that. They understand the importance of what a global mindset brings to their business and to businesses around the world. That it's a mindset of opportunity. It's a mindset of abundance. It's a mindset of understanding and not ranking culture in terms of best to worst or anything like that. It's not about judgment. It's about reality. There's just reality of the way cultures have evolved. They're all evolving too. They're changing. And so what was true 20 years ago actually in many cases isn't always true today in many of these cultures. I think, and I'd love to hear the perspectives by the experts, but as we become more global, the cultures are being altered and changing with time. And so that impacts how we interact with the world, all of us. I'd like to turn the program over to Renee Meyer to introduce all of our speakers and kick off the program more fully. We have Yuka Nakasone, Christina Wachter, and Benjamin Dudgeon as our main speakers today. As I understand it, they'll each be presenting some information. There'll be time for Q&A. At the end, we'll be wrapping up. Our goal is to wrap up at the top of the hour. Renee has been leading this conversation for several years now. She's very well qualified for it, not just because she's a Thunderbird graduate, but she lives in Strasbourg. She helps companies go back and forth, particularly biomedical and life science companies, go back and forth between the Midwest US and French-speaking Europe, and more holistically between Europe and North America and around the world. Renee, you have an extraordinary expertise around culture and what global mindset is all about and the power of global mindset. Thank you for you leading this conversation at the beginning of every year for the last several years and for bringing on such an illustrious panel. I turn everything now over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Jemima, could I just I'm just going to share my screen quick for 1 minute.
Okay.
Just to get this here. There we go. So we have, everybody can see it okay? So I have 3 experts that are sharing the podium with me today. I'm really very honored. First of all, Doug, thank you for giving me this opportunity. We've had the Global Mindset webinar, Globinar, since 2022, where we started off with one of the experts from Thunderbird, the head of the Global Mindset Institute, Mansoor Javedan. Afterwards, we spoke about protocol in global mindset. We went on and spoke about global mindset in communication. And this year, we're talking about global mindset to create success. We really have 3 experts that are talking a lot about language. So Christina is going to help us understand how to use cross-cultural communication for a lasting effect. Benjamin is going to actually give us a grammar lesson today. So we'll learn how to best use English and maybe other languages to show our global mindset. And Yuka then will show us about using English within and beyond borders. And borders have become fuzzy. Even inside a country, you have different communities. How do you cross in between? Is English the tool? And I will wrap it up talking about global mindset for health and medicine. So a very practical use of this. Once again, I'm very, very pleased to be working with these three people. And I think that you'll learn a lot, very practical things. And this is, we talk about global mindset, it's kind of a sky in the pie cloud kind of concept, but there are really some very concrete things that you can do, how you can cultivate your global mindset for success in 2025. So I will hand it over to Christina.
Okay, thank you, Renee, and thank you, Doug. I'm sharing my screen, hopefully. Uh, have you got it? Have you got my screen?
Yes. Very good. Thank you, Christine.
Okay, so let me get this to full view here. And in the meantime, all of you get ready. Where is full screen mode? There we go. Get your fingers ready to type because I need you to participate in this. So let's get going. We have a short amount of time, and I think every single one of us on the panel could take the entire hour, and I don't want to crowd my colleagues' time. So get ready for this. We're talking, as Renee and Doug said, about getting a global mindset for success. And success means so much on so many different levels. It's personal reward, but it's also profit. So let's talk about the cross-culture communication strategies that can get you to the level of profit that you desire in 2025. I have a little subtitle for my talk, which is what one of my clients in Texas said I should have called my book, How Not to Blow a Multi-Million-Dollar Deal in 30 Seconds. It comes down to effective communication. And so let me minimize this. Communication breakdowns cost businesses billions annually. This is worldwide, and the numbers that are of dollars, yens, euros, whatever, it increases exponentially along with global expansion. 50% of international ventures, as you see, fail because of cultural misunderstandings. This is something that's preventable. We don't need to fail, but it's happening again and again. At the same time, we have a reality that the World Bank, projected to $29 million by 2030. I've seen estimates that go even higher than this for the coming decade. It's incredible. So just to put this in perspective, I want you to think for a couple of minutes. We're just looking at very small segments of global expansion here. But last year, from the US alone, 120,000 nationals moved abroad. Now get ready for the chat. This is where I need you. And then I found this statistic yesterday that millionaires from all over the world are likely to relocate to different countries and in several different countries, 142,000 of them. And that's just a little tiny piece of the pie that we're looking at. So get ready in your chat, and I want you to answer this question. How much would you guess that it costs a US company to send a mid to upper level manager to work abroad? Put it in the chat if you will. I can't tell if you're doing it or not. Let's see. Here we go with the chat. Um, okay, you know what? You're all low, very low. It's 3 to 5 million US dollars. So now out of that, how many US, and you can apply this to whatever country. These are general statistics, but they are focused on the US for this particular slide. How many return before their contract ends? Okay, let's see that again. How many would you guess? Okay, the let's see. Yeah,
Christina,
you
I don't know if
very
you've
close.
changed slides. Christina, we're just seeing the first slide. Is that correct?
Oh, shoot. Now it's me? Okay. I had this before. We went through this before. Let me go back to. Okay. So I'll keep talking. Why do you suppose? Let's put this in the chat. And why do you suppose um, that people are leaving? Why do you suppose that's happening? what about this? Can you see some startling facts now?
Yes, that's good.
Okay. Okay. The reason comes down to culture. People don't fit in. They don't belong. They don't feel like they need to be there. But you can see this. This is, of course, again, from the US perspective. But I think every nation's future depends on our engagement in the world, as Yuka's going to talk about our fuzzy borders. So let's talk about why it's critical to master new ways of communication. First of all, we need to increase revenue potential. That's at the very top of it. We've got to overcome the 50% failure rate that we discussed a moment ago. And we also need to we need to retain our employees. Typically, just in business sales, business travelers, for example, to look at a more temporary type of cross-culture communication that's needed, 80% of international salespeople quit within the first 2 years. And that's costing companies so much money. And why? It's something that can be overcome. We can overcome obstacles that are cross-culturally damaging our businesses. It's easy to do that, but we have to recognize the mistakes that we're making first. Now, language lessons are fabulous. They are absolutely necessary, but it's only a part of it. If you do not have cross-cultural intelligence, then you're going to be lacking a lot, even if you do have the language in place. Doug mentioned the importance of artificial intelligence in our world right now. We're looking at people intelligence, social interaction, the ability to understand other people. And then there's the arrogant way, and we see this a lot in the business world. We expect other people to adapt to our ways. I mean, hey, we're bringing the money in, then you can do what we want to do. It doesn't work. It does not connect. It does not succeed, just as leaving home without a plan does not work. So it's important to have a playbook in hand, just so that you can communicate on a one-to-one or a person-to-person level, because that way you can establish what you need to on the basis of who people are individually. Everyone craves respect and deserves dignity and wants to belong. I think those are the few basic rights. And you can see that Teddy Roosevelt, going back years ago, centuries ago, a century, he said the formula for success is knowing how to get along with people. But I take that one step further. You have to understand their cultures in order to get along with them by breaking down barriers that interfere with cultures. This is not something that's easy. We all have our cultural comfort zones, and we've got to bridge the gap. We've got to take the first step and invoke the law of reciprocity towards our new context. We've got to venture into the unknown. And then we create something where people can meet us and where we can go together at the same time. And I call this a cultural Venn diagram. And as Doug mentioned earlier, too, we're evolving continually, so we can look for overlap, where things continue, where the common ties are. I would suggest that every single person in this world could find one thing in common, even if it comes down to the fact that we all wear skin. You take that and you build on there and you go further and further. It's not asking you to compromise your own values or to change how you behave, but it's to recognize and respect what other people do and find out how, as the human race, we have so much in common. And that is how we build the culture divide. But they're always based on the pillars of trust, dignity, and respect. So what I've developed in my over 25 years of research is a 4-step method where you take a look at yourself, first of all, and you see where you stand, you recognize your shortcomings, you look at what you know and what you don't know about a place, where your predispositions come from, where your prejudice may come from, the sources for that, your value base. And then you take it to the place where you're going. You develop a profile based on the history, the art, the various elements of culture that you see within a society to understand why a people act the way they do. Then you're ready to immerse yourself in the culture and to make an impact for the positive change. And I venture that it's all of our responsibilities to take it to the next level now. How can we positively change the future? That's what we need to look at and recognize how powerful we are as individuals. You can see that Dr. Maxwell here said no human circle is so small that it doesn't touch another and another. So I want you to think about someone that you interacted with yesterday. Then imagine the person that they interacted with. Then those of you at CES, you talked to someone at a booth. You've left a shadow of yourself everywhere you go, and that shapes the reality of of the person. We're looking at how humans guide the world in spite of our great advances in technology. The triple bottom line is what benefits from this. We're talked about increased revenue and so forth. The triple bottom line, the people, planet, and profit are what benefit from effective cross-cultural communications. And you as a leader are able to lead with cross-cultural intelligence. So it's a process. It's not something that happens right away. And we all mess up on our own, cultural interactions as well. But as we worked and we have an open mind to develop cultural competency, we're able to act with an agility and intelligence that leads to a fluency. And that's what I call acting with cultural courage, because it gives you the confidence and control to be first. And then that transfers to your counterpart. And you can come to this system of reciprocity where everyone benefits from that. And that's how we discover the human side of business. I like you to be in the know wherever you go. Why waste time? Let's start now. And that's it. Did I make it in the time?
You did, Christina. Very good. Thank you. I hope everybody caught that because there was really some great information. And we'll have to talk later about this connection between cross-cultural and the triple bottom line, because I make it all the time, but you're the first person I've seen that also has been talking about that. So we can discuss that maybe later. Thank you so much, Christina.
Yes, thank you.
Hope that you are ready, Benjamin. The floor is
Sure.
yours.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you very much for that, Dr. Christina. Some really profound ideas in there. Let me just share this. Now, whilst we have helped many people move country and get new jobs, what we really specialize in is helping key employees in businesses to represent companies well and engage in international negotiations. And quite a sophisticated level of grammar is necessary to be able to do that if your first language is not English. So what I'm going to be looking at in this short presentation is how to build diplomacy through subtle grammatical choices. Specifically through the conditional structures. Now, there are 4 conditionals. If I was teaching this with employees at a company, we'd typically use an hour per conditional structure. This is a very, very brief overview, but using conditional language can add diplomacy, flexibility, and clarity to one's language. If you misuse this, it can cause miscommunication, at the worst, offense by potentially being too direct, and can lead to missed opportunities. So really, my message is smart grammar choices can have a big business impact. So let's have a look at the first conditional. So we have a condition and a result. The condition is formed in the present simple. The result will and a base verb. So if we finalize, pardon the American spelling, if we finalize the contract today, we'll start production next week. We could invert that. We'll schedule the delivery for Friday if payment is received by tomorrow. So you can see how these kind of structures can be used in negotiation. Let's have a look at the second conditional. So here, we've again, it's all about conditions and results. So if and the past simple, would or could or might plus the base verb. What does this look like? If we increased our order, would you offer a discount? So you're saying we're doing this. If we want this, we're going to do this. What are you going to do? Or we could invert it again. Were the timeline reduced by 2 weeks, we could do this. We could move forward with the project. So it is quite a complex structure. And really, if you've got a team of employees and that their English isn't great, they do need to spend some time practicing this so they can get it right and using it in role play situations. The third conditional is used more for reflecting on missed opportunities. So maybe there's a team meeting and maybe like a sales quota wasn't reached. You could look at how something was If something had been done differently, then a different result would have happened. So we use the past perfect, and then would or could or might have, and the past participle. If we had addressed the issue earlier, we could have avoided the delay. Another example, slightly more direct without the if, had we negotiated a better deal, we might have saved thousands on production costs. So if you drill employees to use this, then they can use, they can become more sort of analytical and become more effective through that self-analysis. Now, this can go wrong. If employees don't know how to use this, they could, in a negotiation situation, overcommit. We will definitely, when they don't actually mean to be so definite, or if they're a bit vague, I think we could possibly. So they don't have the structure in place, so they end up, being a bit vague. If the conditionals are mismatched, then we can get confused about like what tense, has this happened? Is this going to happen? So really being very secure in tenses and how to structure these conditionals makes clear negotiation more likely. Let's have a look at the situation. So we've got a supplier and there's a delayed shipment. So an ineffective sentence to use to the supplier: fix this now or we'll cancel the order. Now, can you just write in the chat why you think that is not a great thing to say? I can't see the chat, so let me just open it. Anyone tell me why that would not? Yeah, it's threatening. Thank you, Yuka. It's threatening because of this imperative: fix, do this. Okay, it's too confrontational. A better way to say it, if I can just get back to my PowerPoint here. If we receive the shipment by such and such a date, we'll avoid disruptions to our supply chain. So it's less direct. You're giving a clear date, and then you're making it clear what will happen if that target is not met. So less confrontational and more likely to get buy-in from the person you're communicating with. As I said, this was very much an overview, but just a couple of takeaways. So the first conditional: if this happens, such and such will result. So we use it to think about real and possible future scenarios. The second conditional: if something happened, then this would be the result. So this is the one where we really use in negotiation situations. And the third conditional is the structure all to do with regret. So if this had happened, then this would have happened. So thinking about how things could have been done better. Conditional language is a strategy for diplomacy and clarity. It builds trust and avoids misunderstandings. If you know an industrial company where English skills are holding back their sales, do send them over to my website, honeyourenglish.com. I'll stop there. Any questions, do let me know in the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. This is quite interesting because I tried to use this conditional language, but I've never heard someone actually put it down so systematically. So this is great. And maybe offline we can talk about the differences between British and American English and how you use it with that, or changing between French and English also. So she said that she had a lot to tell us, so I will pass the floor to Yuka immediately. Thank you.
To see my screen? Yes.
It's good. Thank you.
Okay. So hello, everybody. I am the only non-native speaker today. Am I? Yes. So I have to be very, very careful not to make mistakes. Anyways, my name is Yuka Nakasone. I'm the Global Chamber Barcelona, Madrid, Valencia, and Malaga Executive Director. but professionally, I do 2 or 3 things. One is help SMBs to go global, which I am going to talk about today. And the other is to implement AI because I'm coming from language industry. So we kind of invented this AI LLM that is in boom right now. So that's what I do as well. So let's dive into it today. I'm going to show you some data so you understand where we are, why we need to go global, and how we need to do that. Is it just 1 minute? So state of global today, I'm using the dataportal.com. They have hundreds and hundreds of pages of state of digital today, and they're creating quarterly information. So if you need to know where we are around digitization today, this is the go-to portal. And this is done by Simon Kemp. He's Scottish, but based in Singapore. He's a global student as well. And if you need, there's a URL over there. Today, we have 8 billion people on the planet, and 70% of population, 5.68 billion people, are using mobile phone, and 5.45 billion population is using internet. So we are connected globally. This is the reality of the world. Let's talk about how we are distributed. This is population, 8 billion people, how we are distributed on the planet. And if you see it, North America is 381 million. And if you go to Asia, it's 1 digit more, right? So we are heavily populated Asia, and then maybe Africa is really populated as well. Do you see it? And what's very interesting is that these are the share of population. 25.2% is in Southeast Asia, and North America is only 3.3%. And now our global economy is heavily concentrated on North America, and maybe China is really heading, but APAC region here, Southeastern Asia is a potential for us, and still they didn't adopt too much of internet. So there's a true potential, and digital world is global, right? So that's where we navigating through. Now, we talked about digital world is global and how digital is impacting our life. Please tell us how much is online shopping and how much is physical retail shop experience. In percentage, can you guess? I don't see the numbers, so I don't know, but 70%. Yeah, you're 70% online. Is it 60-40? 60% e-commerce? Yes. Yeah, you're right. Somebody actually guessed well. Only 20% is online and 80% is still physical shops. This means that you really needs to be mindful about local shoppers as well. And it was about global trend, where we have the population, how we are connected, how we are global, and how we are using internet online. But let's get back to the real trend, market trend. And 2024, there's a study from Kent University.
Oh.
Sorry. Sorry. I was a little distracted.
You may now proceed, Yukai.
Yeah, so in 2024, more B2B companies are trying to boost customer experience, which plays a major role in loyalty and retention. For global brands, this includes the need to adapt their business models and market to appeal to other companies around the globe. And demand for language services has significantly broadened beyond the sole connection of large multinational corporation, meaning that before, corporate world are adopting language much more than SMBs, but now that small and medium-sized businesses are seeking language translation services. And somebody said, maybe Christina said, that it's not about language, it's about culture. So I do localization. Localization means that services and products needs to be adapted in the culture and language of the market we are going. So localization is needed for SMEs as well as of 2024 and more in 2025, of course. So this is the real trend. And not only that, in the United States, the population is really diversifying right now, which means that in the border of the United States, we have multicultural communities as well. Why we insist like languages or culture so much? Because when we want to sell something, people won't buy if they don't understand or they don't resonate with the catch or with the way of selling, talking to us, or the product or services or the company in their language. These are the numbers that is a little odd, 2014 and 2015, but 75% of consumers prefer to buy products in their native language. 86% of localized campaign created outperformed the English versions in both click-through rate and conversion rates. It's clearly saying that we sell better if it is translated or localized. 42% of the total internet users in India prefer accessing internet only in local languages, and India is known that they speak maybe English. And 70% of consumers in Japan prefer to buy only at local language website. That is true as well. So adapting in language and culture is really important. And now we are going back to the language data. What's the word most spoken languages? It's Chinese, but if it's Chinese on the left, but if we go to the middle graphic, it's English. If we add the second, people with the second language, English as a second language. right? And then comes Mandarin, then comes Hindi, then comes Spanish, and it changes if we put the number of people who are speaking that language as a second language, like myself. Maybe I get to be at the first, like English as the second language, or the Spanish as a second language. And Rene talked about fuzzy borders, fuzzy because we are connected globally by internet. So the borders are kind of fuzzy, but within the, like I said, within the border, a border like the United States, we have many communities growing in other languages. We are not talking about Europe. Europe was famous to have this kind of situation, but not just Europe, not just the United States. Other countries are becoming multilingual as well. For example, top 8 non-English US languages. First is obviously Spanish, 40 million people, then Chinese, Tagalog, Vietnamese, Arabic, French, Korean, Russian. And there's a substantial amount of people living speaking these languages. And if we see the Spanish-speaking states in the United States, you can see the red colors in the South. They are very heavily Spanish speaking. For example, Texas is 29%, Florida 20%, Arizona 20%. So that's something that we need to be mindful of. If you put Spanish website alongside English within the United States, maybe you sell more within the nation. So it's not about all international right now. It's becoming really fuzzy and becoming really nuanced. So why we need to rely on,
Could you finish up now? Sorry.
yes,
Thanks.
rely on professionals like us, that because to make a business international, it's very, very complicated. You have to do all around the company internationalization and culturally and language, like Christina and Benjamin said. So please rely on us. We can help to internationalize your business. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Yuka. Sorry, I didn't mean to chase you.
No, thank you.
So I have a last message to give you, and that will be, as I said, related to the medical area. So I thought it could be interesting to talk about a little more specific use of the global mindset. I'm working in the medical area, so you're dealing with hospitals, doctors, health insurance, and I hope in the audience we have some companies that are selling perhaps medical treatments, medical tests, and you might be directly involved, but hopefully everyone can use this information. So why do I talk about global mindset for medicine? This is because you need to understand, it's good to understand what happens from culture to culture. And I think that I can talk about this because I've lived in several different countries, so I have firsthand experience as well as professional experience in the medical area. And this can help you make decisions. On a professional basis, an HR manager or anyone in the company has to decide what will they be paying their employees. If you're a new employee, you're moving, what will you be paid? It's not just the salary, it's also your health insurance, for example. The medicine and what health will be taken care of for your family and for yourself is really a part of the compensation package. So as a company, you need to be aware of that when you're trying to attract good talent to your company. It's also helpful to know on a personal basis, and I have a good story for that. A daughter of a friend of mine was living or is living in Southwest US, and she became pregnant. She's also a Swiss and an Italian citizen. And she looked at her possibilities with insurance, with all the different facilities. And about a month ago, she had her child in Italy. So she moved to Italy about a month before, set up her papers, signed up for the national health insurance, and had a beautiful baby without complications with very good service. So she was able to make that choice because she had knowledge of these different services and the different cultures. We often talk about healthcare as sick care because actually what we're doing at the moment is taking care of the symptoms of sicknesses. And prevention is what can be used so that we don't arrive at this point, and I'll speak about that a little bit later. Healthcare systems differ across countries and cultures. Often that is because of economic and human development. However, there are some other factors. I think there are three things that you can keep in mind, elements that really change the culture around healthcare. And if you understand it using a global mindset, that will help. And that is the basic societal mentality, understanding of time and financial considerations and constraints. So I'm hurrying this along a little bit. I hope I'm not speaking too fast. Cultural. So first we have a collective versus individual. And this, I believe, deals a bit with the idea of who has the right to good health. There are national health systems in all developed countries except the US and in most developing countries. Now, this is related a bit to who has a right to be treated for health care and what kind of health care they're going to be receiving. And I believe that the cultures that have national health systems are a little bit less individual, not totally, of course, but a little less individualistic. Legal systems are very important. Are lawyers involved in the healthcare systems? Where are they involved? On the doctor level, on the hospital level, insurance systems? I've had to navigate between 4 or 5 different insurance systems, and it's always very interesting to figure out who is paying for what. So it could be within the employer pays, and I know in the US and in France, often it's the individuals that pay. In Switzerland, you have a mandatory system. It's not specifically a national system, but you must have certain mandatory insurance. And I believe this can really affect the outcomes because your insurance often will determine where you could be treated, by whom you could be treated, perhaps even the quality, what kind of costs are being paid for. So insurance really determines your health and the marketing system in the different countries. So can hospitals, doctors, insurance system, can they advertise? Can healthcare companies, medicine manufacturers, can they advertise in major media? And that is not the case in most of Europe. Also doctors' costs, doctors' gifts to doctors. I know in the US now with the Sunshine Act, that is much more controlled than it was before. So culture and mentality. Afterwards, time. What does time have to do? Why do you need a global mindset? I think all of us who've studied cross-cultural communication and know how time is seen in different cultures will realize the importance. So many people say, I don't have time to go to the doctors. I don't have time to exercise. So how much time do you actually take for yourself and for different elements? Do you have vacation time? Do you have to take vacation time to go to the doctors? If you have an operation, how is that considered by your employer? Let's say you decide to go for your doctor's appointment. Do you have time to find childcare? Is this just when your children are home? And I think we really saw this in COVID because many people did not have that possibility to stay at home. And I tried to explain to people, especially in Europe, that often in the US, people have several jobs and they're being paid by hour, and they just didn't have the time to be sick because otherwise they wouldn't be able to feed their family. So often people were going to work sick because they didn't have the time to take off. And the third element that I think is important is finance. And I touched on a little bit of these before. So who is paying the insurance premiums? Is the employer paying, and how will that put that into your budget? I know that a lot of French companies that are going to the US market, they don't realize that the insurance premiums have to be put in there. How you negotiate that with the different insurance systems, it's different in every state in the US. It's different in every country also. You have bigger and smaller healthcare insurances, and you really need to inform yourself about it before you move and before you move your company. The prices of medicines and operations are different, of course, in every country. I would urge you to watch the Michael Moore film Sicko, where he really is ironic about healthcare costs in the US compared to many different European countries. It's really, really a great movie. So I really think these three elements are important to understanding healthcare. You need a global mindset, or use your global mindset to understand them. So when you're moving across the world, and to be very practical, as a supplier of medical devices, treatments, you need to ask, who is the payer? Is it the physician? Is it the patient? Is it the insurance company? Is it the hospital? Who will prescribe? I think the second question is very interesting with telemedicine and with AI. Will it be an AI vehicle that will be prescribing your medicine? I know in France that we can have telehealth, and so you could have a doctor online that's prescribing. Will patients have financial and time resources to purchase in the future? We always think that we're going to have more time in the future because of tools like AI. So will we be able to take better care of ourselves? And will the existing health systems really accept your product or your services? Do they fit in there, or is there not physical place in hospitals? Would you be replacing a doctor? Okay, that's depending on the cost, that could be good. Return on investment is always very important, and of course, a little bit more in the US than other places. And you have to see, will this cost the hospital? Will this cost the patient? Will this cost the doctor more? How does this fit into the system? So that's just a quick run up about healthcare and how global mindset fits in there. And I guess now we're going to ask for any questions that you might have. And I will stop sharing my screen, hopefully. Oops, now I can't. All right. Are we back? Are we back? You don't say, okay, very good. Jemima, do we have some questions?
Let me check the chat box.
I don't see too many. But please, just talk, please, the mic is open, or open up your mic, and we would love to answer any questions. Anyone, please, don't be afraid. You have 4 experts here, 3. You have 4 experts to talk about global mindset today. You want to be successful in 2025. How can you do this? Well, maybe in the meantime, I have a question for Benjamin. I'm still trying to figure out the UK mentality sometimes. I know it's an English-speaking mentality, but you spoke about conditional, and I know that we use a lot of conditional in English. Have you ever studied or looked at the difference, whether it's used more in UK English as opposed to US English? Or I feel that politeness is, in my opinion, a bit overused in the US. You're thanking everybody for everything. I always say my sister-in-law would thank somebody if they shot her in the chest, but and I don't know. Can you give us
Yeah, no,
yes.
very interesting, Renee. So instead of overly thanking people, I think in the UK, we're constantly apologizing. So if someone steps on your toes, you say sorry that they stepped on your toes. Yeah, I mean, I'm part of a YouTube network of English teachers based in Canada. So there are 7 teachers in Toronto and Montreal, and there's a couple of us teachers here in the UK. So I go over there and film sometimes, and I've made a couple of videos with the Canadian teachers about the differences between British English and American English. I mean, my perspective is that if you can be understood in one, then you'll be understood by people by either side. My work is mainly with people in the Middle East, in particular Saudi Arabia, and there is like a slight preference for American English over British English. But in my mind, it's just like a few kind of vocab choices. Essentially, the grammar isn't markedly different between one and the other.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think we have a question for Yuka. How do you see AI changing the language translation business? Go.
Yeah, so this is exactly what I do right now. I mean, I've been working in this kind of technology implementation in the industry for a long time right now. And it was machine translation, then came to the large language model, which is more fluent in the bigger size, let's say, document or text. And the impact is really big. I don't have the slide today right now, but overall, the big companies, big agencies did M&A to maintain the revenue because they couldn't make the, let's say, increase of revenue, increasing their business because technology is really changing the pricing model and processes, and many customers are wait and see kind of situation. If the technology comes in and we can use it, we'll wait until it comes. So 2024, we had that kind of, let's say, stagnated status for translators, agencies everywhere. So that's what's happening. And many translators, human translators, which didn't have a very highly skilled techniques or reputation, needs to close the doors. So that's what's happening.
Great, thank you. So I guess what does localization and globalization look like in 2030? Step change. I don't know, Christina, would you have an idea of how things are going forward? What could change?
Yeah, so I don't want to throw a lot of statistics at you because I have already done that. But I was just reading trends and predictions for 25 in the past week, and some of the studies show that localization is going to remain important. But I was surprised by Yuka's test. I thought a lot more people shopped online. But what indicates there have been surprises since COVID. Brick and mortar structures are much more successful post-COVID than they expected them to be. But at the same time, the transfer of knowledge from country to country is increasing exponentially. And one study that I just read that showed, okay, basically this week, worldwide, 150,000 new business startups will happen. Of those, 75% are planning to go global at some point. So if that puts that in perspective, we've got to learn to trust each other. Trust is the bottom line here, and we've got to respect each other with dignity.
That's a powerful statement. I would agree. I don't know how when we have so much lack of respect at the moment. So I think that'll have to be another webinar where we get somebody to talk about that. Who else has a question, please? We're open.
Can I ask Christina a question? So, Christina, you were talking about how expensive it is for companies to relocate employees. So, is your kind of bread and butter making that process more successful?
Yes, because you learn to immerse yourself in the culture. It's interesting. Yesterday, I was talking to a couple of sales directors from two different hotel chains. One was a mainstream, and one was an upper, more of an upper level chain, an international chains actually. And I asked them, I was asking them about their type of training that they have, and they said, yes, we have cross-cultural communication training. I said, what does it look like? And basically, they have modules. The one fellow was talking to me about, he said, yeah, there are some cartoons. It's multiple choice questions. That's a great start, but you need to immerse yourself and you need to own what you have and recognize your shortcomings. And that's where I go with the cultural spin method. The hardest part is identify yourself. And in fact, another man from a nuclear energy company that I talked to earlier in the week said, it's very hard to get my employees to recognize that they need help, that it's not just something that they can learn quickly. This process of immersion is something that requires deeper thought level, and it also requires a sense of humility that, yeah, you may have things wrong, and that is where it's most difficult. So I think from that perspective, Benjamin, it's so important to recognize that it's a process, it's an ongoing process.
Thank you, Christina. I would just add to that question. Do you think that this is changing with generations? Because we say that younger generations are so much more connected and they listen to things in every language and all of this, but I don't know if that's really made people feel more connected or able to communicate more effectively.
I can speak from the level of university students that I teach, and they are more open to it. That I can say. I don't know about the linguistic side of it, but they want to connect with other people. But at the same time, they have to monitor what they believe. Anything on the internet and the influence of social media comes into play heavily there, and the impressions of other countries, and the understanding the misconceptions someone may have about your own culture. And this is where I think the generation gap comes into play in terms of putting the brakes on and looking at, okay, this is one type of person. Let's not stereotype. Let's move from there. And so I think that they're much more open to it. They're much more excited about it. They have access to so much more than we had, growing up. It's incredible. I think it's exciting because they're so positive about global expansion.
Renee, there's a question from Francis, I think.
Yeah, first of all, thank you all. It was a great presentations, very valuable information. So I appreciate it. A couple of things, regarding expats returning back to their home countries is a challenge because you bring about a different perspective of how to approach your peers, and that's something that I think not enough is being talked about generally, and repatriation is a challenge. So one point. The second thing is because of the instant language translation that you could get on your phone, having social pleasantries, knowing, using those, even though you don't really speak the language, I think is really helpful in making the interactions just a little bit more respectful and acknowledging, the other person. So just those comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Francis. Is Doug there to wrap things up?
I am, and sorry, let me pull over so that I don't have an accident. Thank you very much. And just to kind of second a little bit about what Francis said, I think those of us that have been expats recognize that it's not just going into a new culture, but what I heard your point being was coming back. You are changed. You're different. You're a global person. You're a globie, and you're not recognized any longer as a national by your country. And so there is an adjustment. It turned out, in our case, they say that we were told children actually have quite a bit of difficulty with that. And our daughter had a challenge and needed extra care to be able to adjust to local schools. So just something to keep in mind for everybody. Thank you, Francis, for bringing that up. I'd like to suggest, kind of building off of a comment by several of you, that we have this as a regular ongoing process within Global Chamber. We do these events once a year, this event once a year, but Global Mindset is a daily adventure. And I'd like to suggest, maybe it was, well, actually several of you suggested it, that this is not something that any of us doing global business can turn on or off. Or if somebody's new to global business, it's not like, reading an article and suddenly you're good at it. Even after 10 or 20 or 30 years, we all learn more, because there's not just 195 countries, but there's many more cultures. And even within cultures, I've heard the US has 14 different cultures, which I think I agree. And then even within those 14, people are different and they've moved from different places. And so it's an endless challenge. And so what do you think, Renee, about that we just kind of make sure that we continue to have this conversation proactively on a regular basis?
Sure. I think it's great. I'm glad that there's so much that we can talk about. It goes into all different channels, and AI now, of course, will make that a little even more complex. So yes, it's a great never-ending conversation.
The Yuka's comments and other comments about AI and what that brings is also going to be an evolving challenge, and quite honestly more of an opportunity than a challenge, I would say, in the sense of that it's changing fast enough. There are things we should be using today that we're probably not, and then 6 months from now it'll be evolved as well. Coming back from the Consumer Electronics Show, some of the localization type of technologies looked like things that I figured would be around, and then also things that are somewhat mind-boggling. So we'll put together something and certainly include all the experts here and any other experts that just on a regular basis. So this could be a process for all of us to check in with the experts, to be able to connect up for our benefit, but also hopefully for the benefit of all the speakers who are running businesses. And the challenge continues to be for them, sort of alluded to, is, how do you get people to recognize they need help? And very often when you're not culturally aware, you're not aware of how messed up your interactions are. And so how can we continue to educate? How do we continue to get more companies to be successful with understanding cultures? It's something that hopefully as a village and as a community, we can continue to work on. Thank you so much to all the speakers. Have a great rest of your Friday and a great weekend. Does anybody of the speakers have any final comments they'd like to make?
Good.
Nothing in particular.
I like the idea of the ongoing conversation, Doug.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Doug.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you,
much.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Great,
weekend.
great to learn more, Benjamin. Thank you very much. And Yuka, always a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.